Well, welcome back to Swordbox. I want to begin today as we continue talking about addictions with a quote from a paragraph written by Jeff Miller that I found on Bible.org. It says, an addiction is something that we participate in regularly that does some harm to us. Perhaps it involves a substance that is inherently injurious, or perhaps it is our dependence on something or someone that causes our harm. Addictions hold us in their grip, they shuffle our priorities and restrict our freedom. They corrupt our decision-making ability and often foster a secret, guarded lifestyle. Whereas God commanded us to subdue the earth and rule over it, addictions subdue us and rule over us. We don't control them, they control us. And the Bible clearly teaches us that we should allow nothing to control us except God alone. You know, the thing is that you have control. You get to drive the steering wheel. You get to decide how hard you press the gas, if you use your blinker, if you cut somebody off, if you decide to take an alternate route. God has given us the ability to choose, and I'm hoping that you're going to choose God and choose to stay away from things that might be harmful. As we saw yesterday, God had very clear instructions to Adam not to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Sometime later, God created Eve, and the serpent came to her and said in Genesis 3:1, "Has God indeed said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden?" So the very first seed that the devil was trying to plant in Eve's mind is to question what God said. You know, the way the devil said it wasn't the way God said it, and it wasn't what he said. You know, it's often subtle changes in wording, or even just trying to get us to put a question mark where God has put a period that gets us off track in our minds and cloud our judgment as to which direction we're going. Eve responded to the devil by explaining what God had commanded, but just like when Satan tempted Jesus in the desert, the devil doesn't give up quite so easy, and he continued. He then contradicted God's word in verse 4 and tells Eve that she wouldn't die from eating from the tree. Obviously, God said she would, so she's at a crossroads. Who's she going to believe, God or the devil? Then he told her that eating the fruit would make her like God. Then she looked, and she saw the tree was good for food and desirable to make one wise. So evidently what the devil was doing was working just fine in Eve's mind. Just that quickly, Eve was hooked by the cunning deceit of Satan. And that's the point I want to get across today to you about addictions. We can be drawn in and hooked so very easily and so very quickly simply by listening to lies and questioning God's truth. God was not keeping anything good from Adam and Eve. They had all they needed. But Satan wants to convince us otherwise. He has done a pretty good job, especially with the young generations who are being bombarded with temptations at a time that they're most vulnerable. The number one reason young kids try various substances like drugs and alcohol is due to peer pressure. A feeling of not experiencing what others are or missing out on something perceived as fun and good. They're huge magnets that are drawing unsuspecting kids into a world of addictions and getting them to turn off course and head down the wrong road. So I just hope you'll keep this in mind. If you're not someone who's ever really experienced addictions, it's not something you want to do. And you know, as you see the road signs and you see the warnings, you know they're out there. I encourage you to turn the other direction and keep following that GPS that's got you pointed to Jesus, and stay away from the harmful temptations that the devil is going to lure your way. God bless you. I'll see you back here tomorrow.